we're going to get started. So first thing to say is welcome to the ISM Trust webinar for today. We've got 4 music education hubs presenting some absolutely brilliant and varied work to share. And some people have joined us today here, and a lot of people obviously access them online afterwards. So each presenter is going to have about 10 minutes to talk about their project. And then we'll have a little bit of question time and then move on. But of course, all of these people are available, hopefully by email, for you to contact them and follow up on anything that you're interested in. So without further ado, I'm actually going to pass over to Peter Chivers, who's director of the Brighton and Hove and East Sussex Music, which is a music hub there, and Rachel Carter, who's the strategic lead of Learning, Skill and Enterprise, and they're going to be talking about digital badges. So I'm going to pass over to you. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Ali. Welcome, everyone, and thank you to Ali and the ISM for inviting us to say a few words about our badging work. As Ali mentioned, I head up the Brighton Hove Music and Arts Service and also East Sussex Music. We're now one hub. We were 2, and it sits within, for context, it's within the umbrella of Brighton Dome, Brighton Festival. And Rachel primarily works on our Future Creators work, which is the cultural education partnership. Just for a little bit of background, Future Creators and our music hub, we've been working with the Royal Society of the Arts and Real Ideas down in Plymouth to develop a cities of learning model. Initially, this model came out of the USA, and in essence, it's around focusing on recognizing skills that are often not recognized by formal learning, and also the development of learning pathways. And if you want to find out more, if you pop on the RSA site, there's more information, and they're now from that pilot rolling out nationally. A key part of that is digital badging to recognise those skills. And Plymouth, with Real Ideas and ourselves, have then created Badge Nation as a sort of spin-out, non-profit, purpose-driven partnership to really drive the sort of badging agenda. So we've got quite a lot to get through, so I'll be as quick as possible. So let's get on with it. So badging, what is a digital badge? Some of you may know, but just in case, they are a very smart, simple and visual way of recognising non-accredited learning. And I think that's really important. It's non-accredited learning. They're, in our view, they're effective and an inexpensive way of demonstrating your impact as an organisation with the young people you work with and your young musicians. They're a useful tool for earners as well to proudly display them on various websites, on their email signatures, on LinkedIn profiles, Facebooks, and on their CV. As you'll see on this slide, you've got one from a school in Brighton where the young people participated in a work experience webinar, and that's an entry-level badge, and we'll say more about the levels of badges in a moment. So if we move on to the next slide, we've got 3 badges here. And we've got some amazing badges. They're not just music, it's cross-sector, cross creative industries and cross different sectors and different age groups. But I focused in primarily on music ones. So here we've got an example of an ensemble member badge. This is for young people that attend our music centre. And actually that's a member badge is that you've possibly been there for a term, you've attended regularly, you've participated, and you'll be awarded that badge. One of our partners is Make Good Trouble, and they focus much on youth production and radio, and that's a production badge that they've developed. And another partner, Audioactive, I'm sure many of you will know, a partner of ours in Brighton that works primarily out of school. They've got a whole leadership program, and that's their delivery badge. So I'm just going to pass over to Rachel for the next slide.
Thanks, Peter. So Peter already mentioned the layers of learning. We call them layers rather than levels because they're not qualifications. They are a range of competencies, and each engagement and layer of learning develops into the next layer. So we've got engage, which is that initial sort of entry point of exploring an issue or a project or an activity or skill. The next layer is called participation, and that is really sort of more embedded interaction and joining in. So in this case, it would be young people joining in and inquiring and finding out more. When we come to the demonstrate layer, this is really about how you apply the knowledge you're acquiring into a real world context. And the good examples of things like work experience, volunteering, any activity where you're taking the learning you've acquired and placing it in a different context. And the lead layer, I always refer to that as a sort of like a stretch target. It's for those people who become ambassadors or leaders, and they take their learning and then they influence others. So that's in a school setting, that may be school leaders. It might be running an ambassador program. It could be running a social action program. It could be running a music activity. So there's a whole range of different layers, and that's the badge standard is actually endorsed by City and Guilds, who were one of the partners in and funders in the pilot. So they recognise this standard. As I say, it's not these aren't qualifications; they're competencies and skills developed. So these aren't qualifications as such; they're badges. So Badge School is what has emerged out of the pilot, and Peter mentioned about Badge Nation. We've created Badge Nation with Plymouth, and Badge School is a collection or collective of organisations, being schools, training providers, colleges, employers, third sector organisations, providers, who then can join Badge Nation and be able to create their own. Badges can be created, they just go the quality assurance process that we manage just to ensure that they are consistent with other badges, but a very straightforward and easy process. So in terms of using digital badges, what we've listed here, I won't read these out, but it's sort of a way of recognising skills. And what's also really important is the pathway. So somebody might do a badge and then progress. So it's a way of recognising that progression and the skills acquired. It also gives the young person some a form of words, if you like, in order to be able to articulate their experience. Often when people are writing CVs, and often we find that young people don't necessarily understand about transferable skills they may inquire as being part of say they're part of a orchestra, that's a team. So taking that team experience and putting it into the workplace, that's a skill. So it's enabling the young person to be able to articulate their experience in a different way.
You might not be able to see all these slides, but if you go on to Credly and say future creators, you could probably get to these. But I just wanted to give you an example of some of the Music Hub badges that we developed. Again, you can see the ensemble member right up to the sort of black filled in ones, which are ensemble leaders, people that have probably gone to other younger groups and helped younger students progress. We have an inclusive orchestra, and those young people getting recognised for their musical interests and talents. And then we also have a youth music funded project, which is focused in areas of deprivation. So our future music programme, all that work is badged. So we can have a whole range of badges, and we're developing new ones with schools. If we go to the next slide, Audio Active, I mentioned earlier, they have a whole range of music leadership programs that a lot of the young people then go on to become music leaders or hopefully work in the sector. So again, they felt that actually there wasn't anything out there that recognised their courses and their skills that they developed. So they've developed this whole suite of badges in. So if we just move to the next slide. So we mentioned progression routes, and just very briefly, so you have an ensemble member, that's somebody that may have been there for a term, 2 terms, for a year. A performer is somebody that has turned up, regularly performed, and participated. And as I mentioned earlier, the ensemble leader is probably somebody taking a leadership role within that ensemble, but also supporting other young people. So go to the next slide with the ensemble performer. Once you click on this badge, this is what you get on your CV, or on your LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever, any social media really. This is what you see. So here it says, earner of this badge demonstrated their skills by taking part in a public performance, a member of one of the ensembles. In order to be ready for the performance, the owner attended regular rehearsals, etc., etc. So it outlines what they've done, and the skills, in a way, it gives the young people a sort of rubric, a script to actually talk more broadly, if they want to, in other settings, about the skills they develop through music around commitment, confidence, creativity, problem solving, etc. So they're tags within the badges that we feel that help. It's like a digital CV in many ways. So just to sort of wrap up, from a Music Hub perspective, the real drivers for us is they're very accessible. The price point in some formal exams or graded exams is high, and even with Arts Award, but these are much more accessible. So I think you can roll these badges out. They're motivational, they're bite-sized. Think of them as micro credentials that you can stack and build. And we feel that young people want to work towards those. They're flexible as well. You can develop badges to meet various projects and award them. And also they're complementary, so they're not in competition with other activities such as Arts Award. In actual fact, we think they help because you can build a sort of parcel of skills through the badges that then upsum into part of an Arts Award. One of the things we've talked about with partners in the music sector, in the Music Hub partners, is they're authentic as far as the organisation, such as Unified Rhythm or some of our partners, that they write the badges, it's in their language, they understand it, so when the young people receive them, it's from that organisation, they understand. And I think probably crucially, it really celebrates what they're doing, the hard work they put into their performances, to their practice, to their engagement. And it's something they can really celebrate, not just in their music commitment, but actually sort of demonstrating their broader skills that they're gaining from music. And so hopefully that gives you a bit of an overview. And then if you want to find out any more, obviously there's Rachel and I's contact details. So hopefully kept to time, Ali.
Yeah, brilliantly to time. Thank you for that. So we've got the chat box here. We've also got a really nice small group. So people can just ask questions if they want to. Do you want to take us back to the main screen, Maria? That's brilliant. That was a really, really interesting presentation. And actually, because I'm in Brighton and Hove, I've seen this from the beginning and seen how it kind of has developed on quite a lot of work that we've been doing over time. I don't know if anybody's got any questions. If you want to put your hand up, if you have. Andy.
You mentioned the cost a couple of times. What sort of cost are we talking about?
Shall I run through that, Peter?
Yeah.
So
and who does the cost go to? So what are you paying for? Who does the money go to, etc.,
okay.
etc.?
So post pilot, we received, there was funding coming from a number of different sources. After the pilot, we set up Badge Nation with colleagues in Plymouth, which is part of a social enterprise. Mm-hmm. The cost per organisation is £200 plus VAT to create up to 6 badges to issue to unlimited numbers of people. And that's an annual subscription. And what you get as part of that, it also is support through a badge writing workshop and support with creating the badges. And the funding that we generate will go to supporting both future creators and real ideas in Plymouth to be able to source the service. But so a school or a college would pay individually. What we found is in some areas, certainly in Brighton, we managed to get a little bit of money out of the local authority to fund some schools for the first stage, some of the third sector organisations. We're confident that working particularly with employers in that they would potentially sponsor. So they could sponsor a group of organisations, and I think Peter's managed to use some funding to support some of the smaller arts organisations across the region. So we don't feel it's prohibitive. We're not experiencing anybody say that's going to prevent them from joining. Yeah,
thank you.
And it might be worth me adding, for our larger partners, they can fund it. They're happy with £200. For our smaller, as you mentioned, Rachel, organisation partners, sometimes we try and fund as a hub if we can. But to be honest, the price point, most say, look, don't worry, we can find the £200. That's been our experience. But for very small startups that we think are important, we'd try and support.
Thank you.
Hey, can you just say something about, Rachel, it's been running a little bit of a while, we've been through the pilots, some of the stories, or, picking out the what's happened, because it's brilliant stuff that you've done, but I suppose what we need to know on the ground is what's the impact been on the young people, and where has it taken them that it might not have done?
I'll pass over to Rachel, but on a music perspective, we noticed that there's two things I'd say. The young people ask for the badge, you know, when am I getting it, you know, and, you know, so it's something they look for. We all like collecting things, I think. So I think they generally like to collect something, even the older students. But I think the feedback I've been getting is that, especially for students that perhaps haven't had, you know, when they go for interviews for other things, in other jobs, they've said, look, it gives me a great way of talking about, rather than I did a music thing, or I played, which is great, yeah, that's fine. But actually, I did this music project. It gives them a framework to try and explain the skills that they've delivered, either musically or more broadly. So I think that's the feedback I've been getting. It gives them a sort of this understanding of actually the range of skills they've developed. I think Rachel's probably got to build on that, actually.
Yeah. Sorry, what was the question again? It
was just about you know, the impact on the young people and the stories that have kind of come out.
So particularly with lockdown, we found that a lot of schools were saying to us that they were worried about social isolation. And so actually what was really important for some of those young people to stay engaged with their education, talk to the schools. They did things like remote or virtual research badges, virtual debating badges, a whole array, things like COVID responder, positive attitude during lockdown, you know, a whole array of things that enabled, that really was well-being was underpinning. So we found that to be very important. And then the careers events that Peter mentioned earlier on, we did a series of those, which we got panels of employers together. We did it all through Zoom or Teams, and you know, people were able to find out about different industries. So we adapted, and the name of the project was such that we could, because we were all working remotely anyway, and so we just kept changing and working with schools and providers to think about the ways in which we could do it differently. During the pilot, there were several thousand badges issued within Brighton and Hove. We engaged with over 30 providers. So, you know, it continues to grow, and it's important to say also we're doing a number of bids at the moment, and we always, between ourselves and Plymouth, are building badges into those bids as a way of evidencing and demonstrating impact. So for example, locally there's a youth grants programme run by the council, and they want badges to be used as a way of showing impact and progression through an experience. So, you know, we're finding it's a currency that people can understand very easily, but also for the young people, they see it as valuable.
That's really interesting. Any other questions before we move on to our next presentation? No? Okay. It's a really, really fascinating piece of work, as all of the work that we're going to hear about today is. And if you have got any further questions, then do go back, and I'm sure Pete and particularly Rachel will be able to talk to you and guide you in the right direction.
Could I just ask what the website is that you go to in order to just see these?
Okay, if you put in Badge Nation,
yeah,
and we can supply that to Ali. I have it's Badge Nation, and if you put that into your search engine, then it should come up.
And I'll pop it, I'll link in the chat as well.
Okay,
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's definitely, I think, worth looking at beyond, you know, where it is at the moment. So delighted that people get to hear about it. We're going to move on to our next presentation. So our next presentation is from Aimee Gardiner, and she's the early years lead in Newham Music. And Aimee's been leading some really fascinating music work in Newham. Kind of, I suppose, you're going to talk about it quite a bit, aren't you? Reimagining and looking at shifting early years music in different ways. So learning through music, what, how and why. And I'm going to pass over to Aimee.
Here goes with the share. Okay, is that okay for everybody? Can you see it? Lovely. So hello everybody, I am Aimee Gardiner. I'm the early years lead for Newham Music, and I'm here today to talk a little about the learning through music approach to early childhood music in Newham. you can see there's our objective on the slide there. You can see it's essentially a professional development programme, but it's also very much about the collaboration between the specialist practitioners, the early years specialist and the music leader, and about what that relationship can bring to the early years setting and the practice in that setting. Just trying to move on my slides, I'm afraid. It's going a bit slow. Hang on a second, jumping ahead of me now. Here goes. So what do? We empower the adults who work with children. Young children are innately musical. They are not empty vessels to be filled. And we want to support EYPs to identify musical behaviours in early childhood and nurture their development. How do we do this? We do this by focusing on building those strong and trusting collaborative relationships that I talked a little bit about with all the adults in the room. We empower and support them to develop enabling musical environments in their settings. And by doing this, we aim to help embed a culture of musical play within those settings. Our work is not about the 2 hours a week that we spend in those settings. It's about much more than that. It's about what goes on outside of our time there. It's about sustainability and embedding good practice beyond our team of music leaders. And to enable this, we have to work very closely as partners with EYPs to support their subject knowledge and their development in this new and unfamiliar and sometimes very scary area that is music. And so that music becomes a part of the culture in that setting, so that music is as embedded in continuous provision as any other area of the curriculum. I think that's the key. So why do we work in this way? We believe that by building that foundation of trust and valuing the unique skills that each bring to the relationship, by working in partnership, we can support EYPs to take ownership of music in their setting. All children are musicians, and we value their innate musicality, which is why we advocate for a child-led approach to working musically with young children. Children learn through play. This is an accepted part of EYFS practice, of course, but so often not applied to music in early childhood, and it can be. But EYPs, early years practitioners, need support to make this happen. Not only does music have a place in continuous provision, but we also believe that children have a right to grow and develop as musicians through adult-led and adult-guided activities, of course, and this is still an important part of our approach, but it's readdressing that balance. That's what schools and practitioners in schools are used to seeing, the specialists coming in, obviously leading that music and going away, but we're trying to turn that on its head. I've got ahead of myself, haven't I? There's the how and the why. Right, so let me move on. So what happens? How does it work? We tailor the offer to the needs of the school and the EYFS setting. The initial meetings with the EYFS leads are crucial to the success of the programme. It's that communication right from the outset about expectations, and from both sides, so important in building that relationship from the get-go. And we also stress with our schools that this isn't a PPA cover offer. It's not about going in and just covering for that teacher. It's about the work we do with the EYPs themselves, and this can be a barrier, of course, but we found that it's absolutely welcomed by EYFS and departments, so it hasn't been a barrier. It's just something that we need to address right at the beginning. We aim to develop EYFS clusters through this work, creating supportive networks. And through these groups, there are opportunities for additional insets, sharing ideas, learning visits, and so on and so forth. So to summarise, learning through music is an opportunity for EYPs to develop an understanding of what music can look and sound like in early childhood. The ability to identify, observe, analyse, support and extend musical play, and the observation part of that is so critical and so key to what we're doing. The idea that our practitioners going into schools will spend a lot of their time standing back and observing play and being and sensitively interacting when and where appropriate, where invited. And it's about that discussion with the EYPs while they're there, not just about them doing music to the children. They'll develop how to develop musically enabling environments. That's absolutely key to this. The best environment for musical play and learning. And this can be about the skills we have as adults and how we support children, but it can also be about our tolerances, our attitudes can be a musical or non-musical environment. For example, you know, our tolerances for noise and what that feels and looks and sounds like in early years settings. And it's obviously about the physical environment and the resources available and so on. And also games and songs to inspire both musical play and developmentally appropriate adult-led music learning. So lots that we cover, but a very broad range. So that's it in a nutshell. Over to you all with any questions.
Thank you, Aimee. I wondered if you could just, while we think about going on to some questions, can talk to us about, so obviously this is quite a different way of approaching early years practice and should really be applauded, because obviously it's trying to work together and enable from the people who are kind of on the ground with the children all the time. But from your perspective, leading this project, what do you think the challenges are that have come up that that we should be aware of? And the other side of that is, what has success really looked like?
Yeah, so challenges, loads of challenges. First and foremost, workforce development, you know, actually developing my team to start thinking in this way, and seeing good practice, which is very hard to come by with this approach at the moment, although it really is growing. So that's been a huge challenge, but not something that stopped us. It's just an ongoing dialogue with that team. It's having regular meetings and sharing and so on that enables them to develop and grow as practitioners in this approach. Also the challenges with the schools and expectations there. But saying that, of course, early years foundation stage settings expect subjects, curriculum areas to be part of continuous provision. So it's that, you know, the idea of play and so on is not new to them. It's just new perhaps to us as music practitioners, or newer. So although that can be a challenge, it's not something that's insurmountable.
And it's the general practitioners you're working with, isn't it? Not people.
Absolutely, yeah. It's the early years practitioners in the setting. Absolutely.
Okay.
So yes, challenges, but also and also the idea of, you know, when you're in the setting with those EYPs, it's that balance between getting their attention, having their attention, and developing them there on the spot, and then knowing that they have pulls on their attention in their settings with all the children that are around and the needs that are met, and the short staffness of EYFS settings, so many other issues as well that could be barriers. But it's about working with that. But first and foremost, it's about building that relationship with the EYP, and you know, that can't be done overnight. So this work isn't a quick fix, it's a slow burn, but we very much believe that it's that there is huge value in the approach, and so accept that and work with it.
Okay, so my question was, what does success look like, or what has it looked like? I suppose for the kids as well. What's it look like for children and
well, for children and practitioners, you know, for our practitioners, letting go of that that expectation that they go into that setting and they perform, they do it to the children. You know, that can be extremely freeing and allowing them to, as such, to step away from the doing and the delivering, and through offering enabling environments and playful invitations, provocations to play musically, allowing them to then spend time observing those children, observing the learning that is taking place, observing the musicality that is being exhibited in front of their eyes is so freeing and empowering for those practitioners. Also communicating that with those EYPs in the room as well, and starting to get them to understand that and understand what musical behaviours are in the early years, and putting that aside from what we expect musical behaviour to be in the adult world, and saying, no, it's a completely different thing. This, you know, looking at it in its own right, looking at musicality in the early years in its own right.
And of course, there were some case studies done on these before Christmas, and it was a real joy to read those and see teachers and practitioners kind of going, oh, it could look like that, and a change of the way they were looking at it. We got any other questions for Aimee about the project or the programme? Rachel, how does it kind of compare to the early years work that is your approaches in your schools? Rachel Barnes, because you're...
I'm afraid I'm going to dodge the question. So I'm in week 5 of my role as deputy head of service.
Right.
Yes.
You've changed roles. Right. I'm behind the times.
So, it's all right. So I can't really answer that, I'm afraid, at the moment.
No, I didn't realise you changed role, Rachel. How funny. And John's just joined us as well. I don't know if, John, you want to say anything about it?
Well, first of all, I'm going to say, well, hello to everyone, but a particular hello to Rachel. Rachel, don't get too frightened. Don't run away. But we met some years ago, Rachel. We can chat later. Very long. Institute of Education. Don't say any more. You're not allowed to talk about it. That's all I'm going to tell you.
Gosh.
So good to see you, Rachel, and welcome aboard in the Hub world.
Thank you. Thanks.
Great to see you. Can I just say thanks to Aimee.
Yeah.
You can see how important it is to have great and considerable expertise within our teams. I will say, when Aimee came on board, we were taking the approach of what I call a more standard 1-year delivery intensive from the in-house team, followed by a team teaching in year 2, with the hope for lighter touch support in year 3. But Aimee identified very early on dependency culture was built into that model, and she's moved it forward quite significantly in terms of ensuring that the teachers, the practitioners in the early year settings take the lead from the get-go, supported intensively, but from the get-go they're leading. And I think that's been a significant development, and the schools are very strong in this, because as you can imagine, head teachers see that their teachers are developing much more effectively, much more quickly and independently. So yes, thank you, Aimee, for all your work. It's great.
Yeah, that's great. And thank you for your presentation, Aimee. I think it's really, really important that we keep the early years high on the agenda, because, you know, if we don't, where do we start? We start from, you know, this empty vessel approach that you were just talking about, not only in early years, but what you see coming through some curriculum models and going into Key Stage 1. Aimee, you wanted to say something?
Just to add to that, John, and this idea of early years practitioners taking the lead is, in a way, we're turning that on its head, aren't we, John? By saying that by taking the lead, you are empowering yourself with the knowledge and understanding of learning, musical learning in early childhood. It's not about you knowing what to do to these children, it's knowing what to provide and how to enable that innate musicality to be identified and celebrated and perhaps progressed, but that's a whole other debate. But yeah, so I just wanted to put that in before.
I think that's also a really important point about this thing about a general education. You know, music is there as part of the foundation stage and key stage 1 and 2 as part of a general education. It's there. If we don't have it as part of a general education, it becomes a specialist thing. We don't have a right for it to be there. We have to try and build the capacity and the confidence and the knowledge of the people who are actually in the classroom day after day after day, or in the playground, or wherever they may be, because otherwise we put ourselves on a very sticky wicket as to say music is there as a general thing for everybody. So that's brilliant. Thank you so much, Aimee, for your presentation. Pete, there's
just a really quick one, Aimee. Thank you for that. It's really, really interesting. And I guess we're still waiting for this national plan, so let's not look too far. But you know, there's lots of discussions around early years being involved, and it would be really interesting if that comes to fruition, how your work will sort of, and others in the sector will sort of influence that, and how the plan's position. I'm not expecting you to have any answers to it, but it's just really interesting, key piece of work, and it will be interesting to see. And from a personal perspective, I think in many ways, notwithstanding funding, actually it'd be brilliant. And I know we've got license to work in early years as it is, but it'd be quite interesting to see what comes out through that. I don't know if anyone's got any insight or other than those rumours.
It's overdue. That's all I could really say. I think look, the thing is, the hubs who I know their work quite well, I think they've recognised that the early years needs, like you're talking about here with Newham, needs that priority. I know Sue's done things in Portsmouth. There's things going on in lots and lots of different places, and whether it's in the national plan or not, actually I think as educators we've noticed that needs some attention, and rightly started shining a focus there. Let's just hope that the national plan, when it does come through, A, recognises the need for that, and B, provides the resources so that it's not just do more for the same. We will see, I think.
Can I just add to Pete's point there? You're absolutely right, Peter. It will be, we've no doubt, in the national plan, but I think the key question is the additional resources that may or may not be added, and that's what we're all looking for.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we are going to have to move on, and our third project today, we still got Andy with us. Oh yes, in the middle there. He's moved on my screen. It's very off-putting. So we've got Angela Renshaw is going to be joining us, and she's the vocal strategy lead and director of the choirs for Cornwall Music Education Hub. They've done some absolutely brilliant work before lockdown, during lockdown, and now. Yeah, Cornwall, my home. My husband's absolutely sick of it, because if I'm sitting writing something, I just put the Cornwall choirs on repeat, singing that. It's like, but it's absolutely brilliant. I mean, if you haven't seen it, go and watch it. But there's all sorts of recordings there and work that they've been doing. But she was telling me a little while ago about this program that they've been doing. That because she can't be here, she's made a little film for us, and Andy has been involved too, and is very kindly going to answer some questions. It's about unlocking vocal leadership, which actually links very much back to the first presentation, Pete's presentation about empowering young people and the potential through lockdown empowering young singers. So over to Maria, I think, who's going to play the presentation.
Hopefully the film will work okay. So.
Sorry, 1 second, just bear with me. I'm getting everything ready.
Thanks, Maria, that's great.
Hello everybody, my name's Angela Renshaw. I am the vocal strategy lead for the Cornwall Music Education Hub, and I'm also the director of the Cornwall County Choirs. Thank you to ISM and to Ali Daubney for inviting us to share our work with you this afternoon. I'm really sorry that I can't be with you here in person, but I'd like to share our work that we've been doing recently, developing young leader potential within our choirs. It came as a result of the second lockdown, and it was something that we felt we really had to improve for all our singers, so that they had a better experience of the online provision. But what we weren't expecting to come out of it was this amazing project and programme, unlocking vocal potential, which we've managed to continue and develop further as we've gone back into live rehearsals. I'm going to share a film with you now, a short film with you of our work, and then I'm delighted that my colleague Andy Farris, who's one of our choir leaders and vocal mentors with working with the youth choir, will take any of your questions on our behalf. And thank you. I hope you enjoy the film. Just going to try and share it now. I live in quite a rural part of Cornwall, so just bear with me with the internet connection. Here we go.
Children were asked to take a role of young leader. It was really wonderful. We were really proud of them. But again, it wasn't without its challenges. One of my children specifically, he really disliked the Zoom format. was struggling to engage, and being given the role of young leader really boosted his confidence. It really helped him to engage better with the lessons, but it also helped him to empathise with other children who were struggling and to really try to make things more fun and more active for them as well. It's all round been a really fantastic programme, and I do hope that it continues when things return to real life rehearsals.
I felt like quite sad because I'm by myself and I'm just singing at camera and I can just like see everyone there, but I'm just like, are they mouthing it? Am I the only one singing? Just really great when I like hear the young leaders singing, because it's, yeah, you know that you're not by yourself.
You know that you're not by yourself, and also we can't sing together on Zoom, can we? Because we know we've tried it. It just sounds really awful, doesn't it, when we all sing together? Because everyone's internet connection is at different speeds, and it sounds a mess, doesn't it, when we all sing together? So that's really difficult.
Maybe it's just for
Jeez, he's got my knees. I'm being eaten by a boa constrictor. I'm being eaten by a boa constrictor. I'm being eaten by a boa constrictor, and I don't like it very much. Oh, Flippy's got my hip. No, you go from oh no. Oh no, he's got my toe. Oh, jeez, he's eight was happening. Okay, now E. I like to eat was Ambaninis. I like to eat was Ambaninis. I think when other people sing on Zoom, when you're by yourself, it sort of feels like you're singing just one gigantic solo, which can be really daunting. And I think to have someone, especially our own age, there singing it with us, makes it so much more easy and enjoyable.
During the lockdown has really helped Wenna's confidence with singing alone in front of lots of people. It's also helped her stay motivated because she likes to help other people by being another voice on the screen, and she knows the other members really like that.
I will be tall enough to reach the branches that I need to reach to climb the trees. You get to climb when you're grown up.
The role of young leader has increased Flo's confidence. She's enjoyed singing in front of other singers. After she sang as a leader for the first time, and her singing coaches and her peers had said they'd enjoyed her singing, she said, I thought I wasn't good at singing, but I think I'm all right now. Unlike some of the other children, Flo wasn't particularly worried about singing with her friends. I think it was more about her being heard, and being a young leader has meant that she has been recognised as a young person who has a skill that can be shared with others. So thank you, Cornwall Choir, for giving Flo the opportunity to feel valued and to shine.
I would love to be a young leader when the live rehearsals start, because I love showing my passion of singing to everyone and bring joy to the new ones in the choir.
This is the moment when thoughts are changed.
Thank you very much. I think that's the end of our film, and I hope you've enjoyed watching that, and it's been valuable insight to what we've been doing. And I'll hand over now to Andy Farris to take any questions you have. Thank you very much.
I feel like saying brilliant, Angela, thank you very much, because it kind of feels like she's there. I thought that was, you know, so poignant, especially the ending, the messages from the music at the end. If we could just take a little bit of that with us everywhere we go, wouldn't that be brilliant? Andy, can we pass over to you to just say a few words about it from your perspective?
Absolutely. If I could just add a couple of things to what Angela said. So that last section there with us all on the tennis courts there, that was done for the G7, which was written, and he wrote the words and the lyrics to a song called World as One. It was written by Russell Pascoe, who's a Cornish composer down here. And we did a number of recordings throughout lockdown as a way of engaging the kids, really, as a way of just giving ourselves something to aim for during the whole the troubles that we had over lockdown. We found that kids, as Angela was saying, were disengaging, were opting out, were not wanting to be a part of it because they were spending so much time on Zoom calls with lessons and with everything else that they were being expected to do. So we felt that having a target, having a project that we could aim for was a good idea for them, and that was our latest project that you saw just there right at the end. The previous one, the Cornwall My Home, which went online and had a couple of 100,000 views, was our first project that we put together for exactly the same reason, really, to just try and give ourselves a little bit of hope through it all, that we'd all be coming back and singing together, which seemed to be the light at the end of the tunnel, just seemed to be getting dimmer and dimmer. So we put it together in order to try and engage the kids and give them something to aim for. There are a couple of things I'd just like to add to that. During the whole, it was Angela mentioned that as the kids were disengaging, they just wanted to be with their friends, and we had a lot of kids who joined us during lockdown who didn't know anybody, and I think it became very, very difficult for them to become a part of it, to even want to send recordings in because they didn't know anyone. So the parents and the kids, the older kids themselves, took it upon themselves to contact each other through Zoom to welcome all the younger kids. So they had Zoom meetings and Zoom play dates, I suppose, and quizzes and online things that they organized themselves to just welcome the new children and to make them feel a part of the whole project. So that when we did come back live, which we came back intermittently through when we were allowed to, and have since come back during the latter stages of lockdown, they felt they knew each other and have been able to be with people that they recognise and that they've spoken to online, which has been a really, really wonderful thing. Beyond what Angela was saying, we've also progressed the young leaders to, we have a couple of older children who are due to leave the choir, due to leave the senior choir in September, and they've decided that they're staying in Cornwall. So instead of keeping them in the choir, what we're doing is that they'd be sponsored by the Hub to become young leaders. So we're going to teach them conducting, we're going to teach them how to actually lead a choir and to progress beyond singing a choir and use their skills that they've learnt having been with us for some of them 10 years, use those skills to actually lead choirs themselves. So they're going to be on a scholarship program, which the Hub is funding, to pay them to still come along to rehearsals and to learn the skills of being skills of leadership. So hopefully they can go on and take that on to further education and to take that on to wherever they go to next, which will be hopefully a wonderful thing. So that's the project. Oh, just one other thing. But during lockdown, in order to engage them, we also held a couple of we held some workshops. So we did some beatboxing. We got in a professional beatboxer who came along and taught us how to do beatboxing, which was very funny watching the staff do that. We also had an opera. Sorry?
Can you give us a demo?
No, I really can't, I'm afraid. So it's to do with cats and dogs, I believe. There is I think we put a video of it all onto our YouTube channel, so you have to have a look. And we did a musicals workshop where we had a guy from America who works on Broadway. He came along and chatted about how to get into musicals and how to and the route into that. And one of our leaders also led an opera workshop as well. So we've had various things going on as well, which have helped with engagement and helped keep those kids, keep them with us really through the whole period. And they're still back with us now, which is, so hopefully that's proved a success anyway.
That's great, thank you, Andy. The film that the link was on there for, is that link available? You know, the film that we just watched?
So the film itself was pieced together from various bits and pieces that we've had. I think that they're going to put it onto our YouTube channel.
Okay, so once that's on there, maybe if you share that with Maria, because obviously it was a little bit blocky today when we
yes, we'll do.
But if people wanted to watch it, to watch the actual,
there are a number of things on our YouTube channel. So I will when the next person's presenting, then I'll see if I can find that link for our YouTube channel. And
that's great. If you send that to Maria, she can put
see that. Yeah,
you can put that with it. That's brilliant. Any questions for Andy on that then? Rachel.
A question. I can ask a question. That's all I'm doing, asking loads of questions.
No, that's good. That's good. Hopefully I can
hi,
answer.
Andy. It's a general question about youth voice and how that sort of that project, for want of a better word, what you learned from that in terms of wider youth voice in your activities.
Wider youth voice.
Yeah, how you are listening to your students and your young people, and how they're helping maybe shape your offer.
Well, they were very they didn't want to come forward and say why they were disengaging. It was something we noticed at the beginning, the blank screens, the attendance going down. So we kind of had to approach them to be honest with us, and so that we could hear what they had to say about our presentation and about what we were trying to provide. It did turn out that actually we were providing far more than any of the other organisations run by the hubs. So we were really trying to stick in there. So we listened to them, and there were a few of the older kids who were more able to come forward and be honest with us about why they felt it was difficult for them to engage with us. And I mean, you all know that Zoom is a wonderful thing, but it's, for choirs, it's an incredibly difficult thing to manage. You really do feel like you're singing on your own, which takes away the whole thing for a choir, the whole point of a choir. So we listened to them, and we were wondering about how we could use what they were saying to engage with the others. And the thing that came out most was that they were missing other people singing. They were missing singing with another child's voice. Here we were banging away trying to teach them repertoire and trying to teach them how to sing together, and they were unable to do that. So the obvious thing was really to try and encourage some of the younger kids to take over the rehearsals, really, and to be the presenters, so that the other kids could feel that they were singing with someone their own age and not being necessarily taught and spoken at, but being embraced and sort of held in their own rooms, really. So it was quite an obvious thing to do once we realized that actually it was a problem to them. So and the kids that we chose have been, the reason we chose siblings is so that they had somebody else to sing with in their rooms, so they didn't feel they were on their own. And some of the more confident singers who were able to sing on their own and be leaders. So and the feedback we got from the other kids was that they felt that that feeling of choral singing was more prominent. It came back to them, that they could then sing with their peers again, which was nice. So I would say about half of the rehearsal was taken up with peer-led tutelage, I would think.
And that question about youth voice segues us perfectly into our final presentation of the afternoon. Thank you so much, Andy. And
no problem. Thank you very much
and
indeed.
pass on our thanks to Angela as well, and I'll also get in touch with her later.
I will do, absolutely.
I'm very disappointed not to join us today, but it was absolutely great. Thank you. So our final presentation this afternoon, last but not least, of course, is Sue Beckett, the CEO of Portsmouth Music Hub, with that fantastic background. And she's also head of the Portsmouth Music Service, and she's going to present some work, Sound Minds, Music Making a Difference. So over to you.
Thank you. So Sound Minds is Portsmouth Music Hub's programme that uses music and the arts to enhance children and young people's mental health and well-being. And during the last couple of years, we've worked really closely with the Children and Adolescent Mental Health Service, CAMS, as many of you will know it, local wellbeing groups, health advisors, NHS staff, and of course our children and young people. And we've been looking at how music and the arts really make a difference in terms of enhancing well-being, helping children to feel better about themselves and about the environment that they're in, whatever their present situation is. We found that sharing the young people's stories has really enabled us to learn from their resilience, their determination and openness, and that in itself has been incredibly inspirational. We've prioritised our consultations with young people to focus on what's most important to them, and that's been key in directing the Hub's work and impact as part of our inclusion strategy. So I think for us, the challenge is knowing which young people to target and how to target the young people we're not currently working with. So we've used all sorts of means to do that, worked with a number of different groups. So we have a youth representative on the Hub board, and she's great. She comes up with some really great ideas for how to engage with the wider youth community. We have a youth member of parliament with some deputies, and they're really key in terms of opening up our access to young people. We have students who work with the Ethnic Minority Achievement Service, the virtual school, home educated students, so quite a wide net of students that we've captured and worked with and consulted. And of course the schools are also a great source of feedback for us, acting as ambassadors, so consulting with their students and getting them engaged. The Hub has a Young Musicians Council as well, with representatives from different ensembles. So again, they feed back to us. And through the Hub's relationship with the Cultural Education Partnership, we've been working with some feedback and some consultation with different groups of young people. So there's been quite a multifaceted approach to the work that we've done in terms of how we've approached young people. We did an online survey in the autumn term, which was just sent out to different groups who were asked to share it with young people. And we had 548 direct responses, which may not sound a lot, but for us in terms of responses that we've had to that sort of survey, we were really, really pleased with that. What I think was really interesting was that actually the survey highlighted that for the vast majority of those children and young people, mental health was a key issue, and that was what they felt the Hub should be addressing through music and the arts. And as part of that, they identified 4 key themes. So coping with loss, online safety, self-esteem, self-belief, and then this kind of spirit of we're all in this together. This is a shared experience. So what I've done really for this next bit is just to take each of those themes, and I want to give you a quick example of what we've done really to work with young people. So in terms of coping with loss, a new challenge for the Hub, sadly too common amongst our children and young people over the past year or so, we've spent time training our staff in mental health, children's mental health, and there are some online courses through the Aimee group, which I think maybe Ruth may have details that she could put in the chat. But those are free online accredited courses, and most of our staff have done those now. Really, really useful, really interesting. And we just wanted to make sure we'd equip the staff to deal with any issues that came up with the children and young people as a result of coping with the pandemic. So our choir had been meeting online, and one of the young people asked if she could share a song she'd written. And she said it had been written in memory of her grandpa who'd passed away. And I chatted with her mum a little bit later, and she explained that actually writing the song had really helped her daughter to overcome those feelings of loss and sadness that she'd been experiencing. And so Memories, as the song became known, became a real pivotal song, which formed quite a new way of working for the Hub. And I think the stages of its creation are really important, because certainly for Liliana, the girl who composed the song, the process was actually part of the healing for her. So the process was, she shared her song at the choir rehearsal. She had feedback from the choir members, and that was done in a very supportive framework. Obviously the ensemble staff were there, I was there as well. And it was great hearing the choir give her lovely, lovely feedback, but also some really interesting and constructive suggestions for how she might like to think about the song. So we then organised for her to meet with one of our composers online. Obviously there are sensitivities around safeguarding and any potential issues that might come out due to the sensitivity of the subject. But that was all handled very sensitively, and the composer went away, arranged her song as she'd asked. They then had another meeting where they discussed things like the key, the tempo, how many times she wanted the chorus repeated, where the bridge sections should go. So all the kind of musical nitty gritty of it. Agreed what they were going to do, finalised the song. We had the song professionally recorded for her. She also recorded a version herself, and she then chose some images for the song that she wanted to be displayed while the song was playing. And we then shared that film with the choir, who were able to see the process from the very start to the very end, which was great. And the song subsequently has been shared far and wide across the Hub and beyond, and become a real inspiration for a lot of our work. So Maria, if you could play us just a little extract from the Memories song, that would be lovely. Thank you.
I know it's hard, but you have to let them go. You spent your whole life saying, I love you. It's really hard to say goodbye. Oh, how it feels to let them go. Memories of dancing in the sun, memories of having lots of fun, memories of saying hello and not goodbye, memories of dancing in the sun, memories of having lots of fun, memories of you. Memories, memories, I know it's hard to say goodbye. Memories, memories, just remember that you don't have to say goodbye.
I love that picture of Liliana with her grandpa's hat on at the end. That was what he left her. So it was a really poignant moment when we played the song and the film for her mum and for Liliana that first time. Felt a real privilege to be there. So the second issue that was raised was about online safety. And of course, singing has been a huge challenge for us all in the past year and a half. And we've found different ways of singing online, not singing online, and some of the things obviously that we heard from the Cornwall experience. And I think in terms of online safety, we've been very conscious of wanting to make sure that the opportunities we've given children have been incredibly safe, but also as musically rewarding as possible. We have an online e-safety team in Portsmouth who have a campaign called Beware of Lurking Trolls, with their own song, not a hub song, but they have their own song. And some of the feedback we had from students said that they'd like to have a slightly different song that would maybe engage Key Stage 2 and Key Stage 3 students as well. So we had a whole lot of different students contribute music, lyrics, ideas for emojis and graphics in a song about online safety. And it's been used as part of a citywide media campaign and also as part of the National Safer Internet Day. So here's a little taster of It's a Question of Real Life. Hopefully, yes. Thank you, Maria. etc. So it was great having the young people's input in terms of the graphics as well for that, because we wanted them to be involved with the whole process of creating a song, from the actual music to the lyrics to the actual presentation and how it's displayed. So the third issue that was raised in the survey was about self-esteem, self-belief, and that gave rise to one of the songs that we've written in partnership with some schools called I Believe. We had one of the children said to us, although I sometimes feel sad when I sing at home because I'm not singing with my friends, it does make me feel better, and it reminds me of the happy times I've had and the happy times that we'll have again. And we found that was really powerful, just in inspiring young people to be very open about how they felt about themselves and how they could express that through singing. So where some schools were singing in small bubbles, we were able to work with students to create a song inspired by their feedback and by the comments that they'd made. The lyrics in this song reflect the importance of self-belief, high personal aspirations despite what life throws at us. And of course, that was particularly poignant in the earlier stages of the pandemic. The film was released as part of the National Children's Mental Health Week earlier this year. So here's an extract from I Believe, performed by students from St Edmund's Catholic School and Admiral Lord Nelson School in Portsmouth.
Life is a journey that we all make, but I determine
So the message that we've really received very loud and clear from the young people is absolutely reinforcing our belief, and I'm sure one that we all share, about the significant impact and value of music and the arts as part of a recovery curriculum. And we're hearing that from the young people. That's what they're saying. That's the message they're giving out in their schools. They're asking us for help with. So that's been really great for us to know that we're doing what they want, because I guess, you know, that's what it's all about. So as a result of that feedback and the impact of the Memories song, we submitted a bid to the Cultural Recovery Fund, and that included the opportunity for children and young people to work with professional composers to create a song about something that had affected them over the past year and a half. So we're currently working with individuals, classes and year groups. The songs are all very different. Some of them are expressing personal loss, anxiety. Some of them are expressing joy and excitement about things maybe getting back to a bit more normal soon. But I'd like to finish by sharing a song written by some Year 6 students at Flying Bull Academy in Portsmouth. It's just an extract, but the whole song really encapsulates the past year and a half. And I love the chorus they've written, which says, "Can't hold us down, can't hold us back. We're here, we're better, it's true." So here are Flying Bull with "Can't Hold Us Down."
Shout out Marcus Rashford, our hero dressed in red. Speaking up for free school meals, keep them going, Boris said. Working hard, campaigning to help those most in need. Shining bright to show the world great things can be achieved. You lived that life, you made it through, fighting for poverty as good people do.
Can't hold us down, can't hold us back. We're here, we're better, it's true. The Flying Bull family went through. This is what we do.
Shout out for our teachers, TAs, our staff, our school. You kept us learning, kept us going, they with us through it all. The words we sing are not enough, our thanks unmeasurable. 'Cause through it all, our own great school, you made us invincible. A challenging year, but now we are here, singing our song where we belong.
Can't hold us down, can't hold us back. We're here, we're better, it's true. The Flying Bull family we went through. This is what we do. Can't hold us down, can't hold us back. We're here, we're better, it's true. The Flying Bull family we went through. This is what we do.
I can't wait. We've literally just had that one finished in the last couple of days. So I really can't wait to hear the children performing that, because I think it's going to be really powerful and engaging and a real kind of anthem for their school. So the songs I've shared with you this afternoon are either on our website or our YouTube channel, so they can all be downloaded freely with resources to accompany them. We all have different skills and different people working with us. We've worked really hard to find, coerce, nurture and develop our composition team, and we're really proud of them all. They're doing some fantastic work with our children and young people, and I think through the Youth Voice consultations it's just been great knowing this is what the young people are wanting. So the website is portsmouthmusichub.org/song source for those resources. I'll put it in the chat in a moment. So if you have any questions, feel free.
Thanks, Sue. There's already a question in from Rachel.
Oh,
Hi, Sue. It was just about how you connect with young people's surveys. I understand that we sent a survey at the end of the summer term last year and had very few responses. And I think that survey went out through heads of music in schools.
I think it's a huge challenge. We were quite concerned about how we were going to get responses back, because you just feel sometimes you're banging your head against a brick wall. We have an all schools bulletin that goes out, and that goes out to schools, all schools every week, and we use that to put the link in. We also have through the local authority an inclusion team, and they send out information to all the inclusion managers in school. So that was another really powerful channel that we were able to use. I think it is a great advantage, I feel, being part of a local authority, particularly when you're trying to reach out to loads of different organisations. So things like the Ethnic Minority Achievement Service, Virtual School, we've just contacted all of those heads of service and said, look, here's the link, can you send it out? And, you know, in some respects, 548 doesn't feel like a lot when we've got 24,000 children and young people. However, that's still a significant number, and to then have that feedback was really helpful. So I think it's just kind of chipping away at different departments, and if you're not part of a local authority, still contact them and get them to pass that information on, and youth workers, youth groups as well.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions for Sue? I think you might get some afterwards, Sue. There's one here from Pete, though.
Yeah, hi, Sue. Brilliant, amazing. I just put in, it'd be good to know what course, because that sounded really interesting, the online courses. I found a level 2 one, but I don't know if that was the right one. So at some point,
I can send you the information. I think,
yeah,
I don't know whether Ruth is able to say anything, but I think Ruth was in discussions with them. I don't want to say anything out of turn.
It sounds really...
Ruth will tell you what the position is. Great, thanks, Ruth. Except her internet connection's not very good, she said.
But you know, after, but it sounds like a really helpful course. I'll
send you the link, and
Hi everyone, sorry I didn't have my camera on because I'm in the office. The Wi-Fi is awful.
We can't really hear you. Do you want to type, Ruth? Is that going to be easier? If you type up a response, that'd be great.
I can send you the information and the contact anyway.
Sorry, Ruth. We would have loved to have seen you. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I just wanted to pull a few things together, actually, because I've just listened to 4 absolutely brilliant and diverse presentations. So a massive thank you to all of our presenters this afternoon. I know that these will get looked at a lot online afterwards when people come back to them. Small but perfectly formed group, I would suggest. Thank you very much. I thought that the thing that really struck me actually was the interconnection between the formal, the informal and the non-formal, and how they just weaving in and out of each other with all of the brilliant work you're looking at across the age span, in schools, out of schools, in communities, for children, and all of those things. And the other thing that struck me was about the ownership, the authenticity and the creativity, whether that was giving ownership to early years practitioners in schools or giving ownership to young people with that brilliant music that came through lots of different ways, you know, ownership for decisions, ownership for whatever it may be. And it just kind of struck me that this, you know, with all the paradigm wars that go on in music relentlessly, what actually shines through, no matter what you do, when you shine put the young person back in the center, it's the embodied knowledge, isn't it? You know, and the actual seeing and the doing, and particularly the hearing of the work that we've shared. And to me, I think that's the most powerful way that there is, actually, of telling the stories that we have about young people and their ownership and their music and their musical journeys. So I think that's hopefully something for us all to kind of think about further. It's the first time we've had this little series of teach meets. We've had a brilliant one from primary and a brilliant one from secondary, again, very diverse, trying to give people voices. And obviously ISM work with lots of different music hubs in lots of different ways, offering a variety of professional learning opportunities. And I guess I'm really interested to know, you know, what can the ISM Trust do to help to support your work, to share your work, to help with professional development and those kind of things. And we'll obviously knock this off the end of the recording, Maria, but I would really like to, you know, ask what it is that you think you want and you need, and how we can share your work further, and, you know, what do you need? And that's not necessarily a question and answer for now, but it might be. John looks like he's about to unmute. But yeah,